The story opens with a delivery boy arriving at a residence to drop off a package. Upon entering, he encounters something deeply unsettling. The door to the back room creaks open on its own, accompanied by heavy, mysterious sounds. Driven by curiosity, he steps inside, only to discover that the individual he had just seen vomiting in the drawing room is now hanging lifeless from the ceiling. The scene transitions to a city where two sisters, Hanaif and Esti, live together, having lost their parents. They rely on each other for emotional and practical support. One evening, they receive a call from their maid, informing them that their uncle Khair is gravely ill and wishes to see them one final time before passing away. The sisters travel to the village, arriving late at night. They find Khair bedridden. Esti, the younger sister, senses something ominous and attempts to leave the room. Suddenly, Khair rises, stumbles toward Hanaif, and collapses to his knees, pleading for forgiveness. His body begins to convulse violently, and with a painful scream, he falls to the ground. In a somber tone, the maid reveals that Khair had previously attempted suicide multiple times but survived each attempt. His final wish was to see the sisters before dying peacefully. Confused and unsettled, the sisters retreat to their childhood bedroom to rest. At midnight, Khair inexplicably rises and leaves the room. Esti awakens and notices Hanaif is missing. Concerned, she searches the house and finds Khair's bedroom door ajar. She suddenly senses a presence behind her, but upon turning, sees nothing unusual. Eventually, she finds Hanaif in the bathroom, which brings her some relief. However, the now locked door to Khair's room raises further questions. The following day, Khair's funeral rites are held, and prayers are offered. After the ceremony, Esti feels faint and experiences a nosebleed. The maid advises her to rest and asks Hanaif to stay with her. That night, Esti approaches a window that has mysteriously opened. In the distance, she sees a shadowy figure resembling Khair. When she looks again, it has vanished. Fear grips her. Could Khair still be alive? Esti decides to return to the city, but Hanaif insists on staying until the final rituals are completed. Esti reluctantly agrees. That night, she struggles to sleep. Suddenly, the bedroom door begins to open slowly, and Khair rushes in. Thankfully, it's just a terrifying dream. But as Esti exhales in relief, she notices the door is actually open. Her fear resurfaces, leaving her unsure whether the events were imagined or real. The next day, Hanaif is cleaning their late mother's room when she discovers a sharp piece of wood, an object that hints at a hidden mystery. Meanwhile, Esti's condition deteriorates. Her nose bleeds again, and she begins to convulse. That evening, she insists on cooking alone, which gives Hanaif a brief moment of comfort as she steps away. But what follows is deeply disturbing. Hanaif sees Esti's shadow near the dining table, even though Esti is still in the kitchen. Alarmed, Hanaif rushes back, only to find Esti still standing there, confirming that something supernatural is unfolding. Just then, the figure standing in the kitchen turned toward Hanaif with a chilling, unnatural smile. Overcome with fear, Hanaif fled to the washroom to compose herself. But the true horror was only beginning. Slowly, a figure began to rise from the bathtub. It was their deceased uncle, Khair. Panicked, Hanaif rushed to the bedroom, calling out for Esti to escape. But Esti was nowhere to be found. Strange noises echoed from Khair's room. When Hanaif cautiously peeked through the door, she saw Esti gently massaging their uncle. Hanaif called out repeatedly, but Esti remained unresponsive. As soon as the door opened, Hanaif pulled her sister away, packed their belongings, and decided they must leave the house immediately. However, as they stepped outside, Hanaif grew dizzy. Before collapsing, she saw something terrifying. Esti was no longer herself. She had been possessed by the spirit of their uncle. Hanaif screamed, then fainted. The next morning, Hanaif regained consciousness. Esti, now back to normal, had no memory of the previous night. Hanaif warned her that for the next 40 days, their uncle's spirit would continue to return, and no matter where they went, escape would be impossible. Determined to uncover the truth, the sisters began searching Khair's room. Atop the cupboard, they discovered a dust-covered box. Inside was a book detailing demonic rituals and spiritual pacts. Hidden within its pages was a photograph of the sisters with their parents. As they read the final page, a horrifying revelation emerged. Their uncle had made a pact with dark forces. The condition of the deal was to sacrifice his entire family. Because he failed, his soul remained trapped in torment. Calling the sisters back was his final attempt to fulfill the pact. Killing them was the only way to free himself. If he failed again, the demon would continue to torture him. The sisters immediately called their maid for help. But instead of her voice, they heard Khair's on the other end of the line. Now convinced the house was cursed, They tried to flee. Yet as they reached the main door, an invisible force dragged them back inside. One of the sisters caught a glimpse of a woman, possibly their long-lost Aunt Saba, who had mysteriously vanished years ago. When the sisters regained consciousness, they found themselves in their beds. They began searching the house for Saba. Soon, Kaer appeared before them, but vanished just as quickly. Meanwhile, Esti began vomiting again, this time expelling a thick black fluid. Henif realized her sister was the next target. She held Esti tightly, vowing to protect her at all costs. Around midnight, strange sounds echoed from outside. Henif went to investigate and saw Kaer once more. At the same time, the maid, unable to reach them by phone, sensed something was wrong and decided to come to the house herself. Inside, the sisters were consumed by confusion and fear. They couldn't understand what they had done to provoke Kaer's wrath. Then Henif noticed an old photograph of the house they were staying in. The truth finally came to light: the bungalow had been inherited by their father, who had planned to sell it and move to the city. But Kaer wanted the property for himself. When their father refused, Kaer plotted to eliminate the entire family. Upon learning this, Henif stormed into the room near the ravine and shouted that they were ready to leave the house, pleading for the torment to end. At that moment, she noticed a loose floorboard beneath the bed. Removing it, she discovered a human skeleton, and a severed hand belonging to Saba. Kaer had claimed Saba left on her own, but it was now clear he had murdered her. Terrified, the sisters prepared to leave. But as they reached the kitchen, they heard strange noises. When they peeked inside, their maid was standing there. The maid's behavior was unsettling, unnaturally calm and eerie. That's when the sisters realized the horrifying truth. It was an illusion, a trick orchestrated by Kaer. The maid standing before them wasn't real. Her eyes were completely white, and moments later, Henif's body began to lose control. Kaer's spirit was attempting to possess her. Just in time, Esti pulled Henif away. At that very moment, the real maid arrived at the house. Before fainting, Henif handed her a wooden artifact left behind by their father and recounted the terrifying events of the past few days. The maid was stunned by what she heard. Yet something didn't add up. After the sisters' parents died, it was Kaer who had taken them in and raised them. Later, when Saba suddenly lost her sanity, Kaer had instructed the maid to take the girls far away from the house to protect them. If Kaer had truly been involved in a demonic pact, why would he have spared them then? As the maid pondered this, she noticed Esti's condition worsening. Esti began to faint, and in the next instant, Kaer's spirit possessed her once again. She lunged at the maid just as the entire bungalow was plunged into darkness. Henif rushed into the room to find the maid unconscious. Desperate to locate her sister, she turned, only to see Kaer standing in the doorway. At first, it seemed he had come to kill them. But then his behavior shifted. He collapsed to the ground, writhing strangely. Suddenly, a woman's voice echoed from behind. Henif turned to see Saba standing there. It was Saba, not Kaer, who had performed the demonic ritual. Years ago, Henif's mother had mocked Saba for being barren and eventually forced her out of the house. Humiliated and consumed by hatred, Saba had vowed to destroy the entire family. Just then, Esti appeared, repeatedly calling Henif's name. In a flash, an invisible force dragged her into Saba's room and slammed the door shut. Henif tried desperately to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Then, Saba appeared behind her. Frozen in fear, Henif turned as the door creaked open on its own. What she saw next was horrifying. Esti was suspended in mid-air, gripped by an unseen force. At that moment, the flashlight went out. Fortunately, the maid regained consciousness and managed to wake Henif. They retrieved the wooden artifact and revealed a hidden compartment containing a piece of paper. Inscribed on it was a sacred mantra capable of releasing Saba's tormented spirit. Just as the maid explained this, a mysterious force pulled them apart. Henif heard her sister scream. As she rushed to help, Saba appeared behind her, only to vanish in an instant. Terrified, the sisters peeked into the room again and saw Saba looming above them. Screaming, they fled and hid. Finally, Saba revealed the truth. Years ago, when Kaer sent the sisters away, Saba lost her chance for revenge. Even in death, her soul remained restless, bound by the demonic ritual. This was her final opportunity. If she could destroy the sisters, her soul would be freed. Summoning his courage, Henif decided to confront Saba directly. But she seized him by the neck. In a final act of defiance, Henif grabbed the wooden stick left by their father and drove it into Saba's stomach with all his strength. Her spirit ignited and burned to ashes. The nightmare was over. The sisters were safe, and the curse had been lifted. And with that, the story concludes. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more chilling horror tales.